the church leader then feels, well, the only way I'm going to get the outcome to know I succeeded in this is I got to make sure I have a tight rein on these group of people.
Yep.
And so I'm going to put things in place to make sure that they turn out exactly how I want them to turn out so that we can get the outcome that I want us to have.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things wrong with that. And I've had to learn this of when I'm feeling the need to control somebody, it usually has especially like when it comes to seeing someone's salvation come, it has more to do with me not trusting that God can change them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing the results I think I should be seeing, and so I then start putting things in place and forcing them to turn into the type of Christian I think they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, I don't. Thank God someone didn't do that to me, because I have taken so many wrong turns, and that's just part of the growth of being a Christian. Of you're gonna take some wrong turns, but in the end, you're going to hopefully reach the destination. This is Into the Fray. I'm Austin.
I'm Chase.
And Chase is permanently a part of Into the Fray now.
Yes.
You really might as well be.
I should.
Yeah.
I love coming on here, though.
Yeah, it's fun. Because like I said, I'll cut that part out beforehand, but like you genuinely know how to have a conversation, which is great.
That's what I like to do.
I get to relax.
Yeah.
I'm not working.
And a lot of the topics that we talk about tend to be things I really enjoy talking about.
Yeah.
Especially today's topic.
Yeah. But I was thinking about this, knowing that we're recording this episode today, I'm really thankful for you because I'm thankful for your friendship because you've helped me figure out what friendship's supposed to be. You are someone friends should be people who lift you up, who inspire you. If you're not inspired by your friends, it's like, I don't know, that's miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've helped me see something I was missing for a long time. You're someone who inspires me, you challenge me, you are an uplifting person to be around. And then also you're one of those Christians who are real. You'll say whatever, and I can say whatever, and we don't have to be like, oh dude, I'm really sorry that I dropped a F-bomb right there. Or I'm really sorry that I said that thing that I shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we know each other's hearts.
That's the main thing that we all need to do is just understand the hearts of the people that we're around.
Yeah. Of like, I really appreciate that, especially early on in our friendship.
Yeah.
Me and you had long conversations about like who we want to be as people and who we didn't want to be as people. And so I think it was nice because it helped set up the rest of our friendship where we can have those conversations where we say things maybe that we couldn't say in other places, but we can say out of pocket things because we know that each other's intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And we know who we're trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we know why we get frustrated at things, and we know deep down maybe we do something wrong, but especially with us, like we had good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we just acted wrongly on those good intentions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've spent enough time in friendships that were one-sided to the point where I figured out the friend that I wanted to be to
Mm-hmm.
people, and I'm by no means saying I'm perfect, and I really appreciate all those things you said, because I mean it just reassures me that I'm actually trying, that I'm actually making an impact as a friend. But I've had the one-sided friendships that have always just wanted something, or never was anything but surface level, and those can leave you very drained and really disappointed, and can make you sad because I mean, I always wanted more out of friends, and I always wanted to be more of a friend, But no, your friendship is very important to me, and like you inspire me, you encourage me. So it's not a one-sided thing
Yeah.
where I feel like you feel like I'm just pouring into you, but no, you're pouring into me, and that's one of the main things I love about coming to this church is having people like you, and especially you. So right back at you, bro.
Yeah. It's people may not know this, but like especially today, like I don't have a ton of notes planned for this conversation because me and Chase get coffee like every 2 weeks, two to 3 weeks.
Yep.
And if you look back at the episodes with Chase, they're 2-3 hours long.
And I'm sorry for that, everybody. I know I get a lot of grief for that one. I'm sorry.
But what people don't know is that's how our hangouts usually are.
Yep.
Without the mics, we usually get coffee at Panera Bread and talk for 3-4 hours. And something else that I loved about it is like there are moments I feel like you have a really good friend when it can get really quiet and you don't feel forced to say anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like when you're constantly feeling the need to impress someone, that's when you're like, yeah, maybe this friendship ain't as genuine as it was. Because when
Can you believe the weather we're having lately? Oh my God.
Yeah, I hate that. There's nothing I hate more than when people talk to me about the weather.
Yeah. That kind of, like, I don't hate small talk, but when it's always that, I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't do it all the time.
Tell me why you're depressed.
People don't know that we've already been talking for a little over an hour already before that we started the podcast. So that goes to show our friendship.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on Stranger Things?
Oh, it's a hot take, and you might not like it.
Oh God.
But I liked it. It was a little confusing at the start because I didn't watch the previous seasons ahead of time, and it's been like 3 years since the last time this last season came out. So I was a little confused. About halfway through the series, I started to get what was going on. The tone was a lot different than the previous seasons, and each season gets a little bit, more distant from like the first season. But I really loved the first season. I loved kind of the thriller suspense feel to it more than like horror. But now it's become more horror, and I don't dislike it, but I just kind of miss that vibe of the first season. But I do like where the story's going, though.
Yeah.
I like, we're starting to figure out things that we had questions about since at season 1, especially season 2, of understanding, who Eleven is, where she comes from, why she is the way she is, and then also the relationships that are, kind of coming in and out and understanding people. I think the complexity of some of the characters is like really cool.
Yeah.
So I liked it. I guess it's going in the same vein of what it's been going from season 1, is it's just evolving over time, which is good.
Yeah.
But like I said, I just kind of miss that really 80s vibe to the show. I mean, the intro, the grain from the intro, the shifting of like the cells, like when you're watching it, like it's so cool to me. I love it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I felt like season 1 was really great. Season 2 was good.
Mm-hmm.
Season 3, I could have cared less for.
Really?
I did not like.
Oh man.
It was very bright.
Yeah.
And I understand it's like their intention behind it, but I wasn't feeling it. I liked the darkness of like season 1, and that's why I felt like season 4 was so good, because I felt like it kind of tapped back into that again.
Mm-hmm.
And that scene with Max,
that is one of the best scenes.
that is. I'm so happy I'm not alone. Usually I'm alone in the things I like in movies, because I guess I love bad movies, but when I started seeing how many other people loved that scene with Max, and like the running up the hill song, I was so happy because that is the I haven't felt that way about a scene in a movie in a while, or like a show. I've like really like invested and like I don't know. I felt like I was like really into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't remember. It's been a while since I got that invested in a moment in a movie.
Yeah. And I think the complexity of leading up to that understanding, there was no, in previous seasons, you saw the characters come back from,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spoil anything. I mean, it's been out for a while.
Yeah.
It's out. People can watch it. Okay. Kids, like, or characters in the show, they came back. Like, they didn't die. If they were gone, they came back.
Yeah.
Unlike Max's brother in season 3. But like I don't know about you, but when I first saw the first death in season 4, like I honestly thought that they may come back. Like there may be, like I saw what happened and I thought that maybe they might, like there was just that inkling of hope because obviously nothing is real right now. So you kind of think something might happen, but then when you start to see that no, this is set in stone, like these deaths are real. They're not fake. They're not going to an alternate realm and then being able to come back.
Mm-hmm.
At least up to right now, they're not coming back. Like at all. But knowing like okay, what was going on with Max is what's going to happen to her, and you're already mourning the death of a character that you do kind of love. I mean, you love these characters because you're invested in the series. But then to see like the glimmer of hope, and you don't know how long that window's there, and you're seeing like all the other kids like getting scared, and you're not wanting to see a character you love, go through what you've seen the other characters go through leading up to death. But yeah, no, you're right. That was so I was on the edge of the seat the whole time watching that scene. But no, it's probably one of the best scenes in Stranger Things. I put it up there with the intro to the mall of season 3. Like, as far as like my enjoyment in the series, like I love the intro to the mall, like kids getting into the mall and going to the mall, and I just enjoy it.
I know
like,
what you're about.
I'm not saying like they're the same like emotional level, but I really like those scenes really stood out to me as like definitive in the series.
I think the only thing maybe that has kind of made me feel, I don't know if it's the same level, but in Spider-Man No Way Home, watching Tom's character like overcome the grief and him or even like that moment, there's this shot and it looks like a freaking video game. Like it is, I don't know much about cinematography or any of that stuff, but this shot, I was just like, it's beautiful. That's the only way I describe it. Of his aunt just died, and he's looking out, and you can see J. Jonah Jameson like talking on the big screen, and it's just like rain's pouring down, and it's such an amazing shot because I felt like I could feel what he felt.
Yeah.
Of he's truly broken.
Yeah.
But then you like fast forward to the end of the movie, where Stranger Things, like they were able to kind of capture all those feelings, I feel like, into one sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where like Spider-Man No Way Home, where at the end you see Tom, he has to make the decision not to kill like the Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
You see his frustration, you see his like hate and his anger, but then you see him have to like let it go. And you're like, he's grown.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the same way with Max. Like, you got to see her grow in like real time.
Yeah, I mean, she was literally facing demons.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, that was how they went about like incorporating like a saving element was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just so many things you take for granted now. Even in, and we were talking about this while we were watching it, me and Amber, but like, um, imagine it being a CD. Like you could quickly get like that whole scene would have sped up more. So you're sitting here, you know, as a viewer going, oh man, if it was only a CD, what if it was Spotify, or what if it, like we could figure this out so quickly, like would, but no, they were having to go through cassette tapes and like,
Yeah.
you know, fast
Wow.
forward and
Yeah.
rewind and all, and so that added a level of suspense because I mean, as a person who grew up with tapes and like did all that, like you understood that it wasn't like a CD or MP3. Like, so maybe some people don't understand the suspense to it. Maybe people like me and you might, because we had that media
Yeah.
and we understood like you go too far, you missed your song, you go too far back. Like it had to be perfect.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my gosh, they're not going to make it. Like it's, but now it's cool. Like they did a perfect, perfect setup for the whole scene.
Yeah.
I loved it.
What a great song.
I know. And what's
Yeah.
weird to me is that I knew listening to it that it was from the 80s, but this goes off on a whole nother tangent of a topic.
Okay.
But music now, like that song could be released today and it would fall in line with how some songs are written today. Like music hasn't really evolved like it had in previous generations. So for it to resonate with culture now,
Yeah.
I think that really says a lot about how music now is really not much different than what it was. I think it's now just recycling stuff we've already heard more and more of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good. I love
Yeah.
the song. I'll hear it like it's like a trending thing on Reels, you know, on Instagram. So every reel you see, somebody's doing something with it. So you hear it all the time. But it's a good song. Like I really like it, and it's cool that the singer had a career resurgence. Like the song peaked higher on the charts now than it did back in the 80s. And I guess that can, this is to talk to people out in the audience, like be inspired because you never know where life will take you. When you think something might be over in your life, you never know when you might have your next shot. You never know when you'll have your next opportunity. For her, she thought that song was long gone and she'd never know anything else about it, and it was just a blip in history. But now it's on one of the biggest TV shows in the world, and it's on the record charts, and people know her now. People love her song again. So be inspired. That you never know. You never know what might happen.
It's a real art, though, of picking the right song for these moments. Of like David Dobrik, he'll have these. He used to have these montages with when he'd give cars away or like very like emotional moments in his vlogs, and he'd always play this the Carolina Liar song or whatever. And this guy he's been homeless since that song came out. Like he had a moment and then that moment left and he became like a homeless musician and his career just tanked. And then David Dobrik, not thinking about it, was like, I love the song and it goes perfect with this moment, and it changes that guy's life all over again. And every time I listen to that song, I just think of those scenes in David Dobrik's vlogs, and it's just really cool of like how some songs they're so attached to certain scenes in movies because they fit so perfect.
Yep.
And so then it's like you can't disassociate them.
Yeah, that song right now will always be forever associated with a Walkman and foam-covered headphones that I once had as a kid. And so, like, that whole experience Max was going through, like, I now pull in elements from, you know, my youth growing up. And, you know, it all ties together. So there was so much. I pull in so many elements from that, like from my physical life and then from watching it on TV. So it's like, I don't know, it can get weird. Like I get watching those kinds of scenes that really tug at you. You really start pulling in, and it's what film's supposed to do, is pull in, you know, emotions and situations and things from your own life so that you, at some point, some in some little way that you either feel like you're in that story yourself, or just that story is just so emotionally like connected to you at this point. So I don't know. I loved, that was my favorite scene, and it was funny that I deemed that scene as one of my favorite ones in the series, or in the season so far, because of, just of all of those things connecting to it. The song, the situation, the character, the all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I didn't, and the world didn't have to tell me that when I saw it. Like I was like, that's my favorite scene, and I think that was cool that pretty much everybody decided that is their favorite scene.
Yeah.
It's very uncommon for that to happen nowadays. Is for everyone to have like a common like versus a common hate.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So today we're talking about church hurt.
Yeah.
And you chose to do this topic.
I did.
And I think it's we've kind of hit on it before, times past, and I think me and Robbie did an episode on something similar to this before. But I think the reason why it's so like necessary to keep revisiting it is just because it's such a common experience for people, and there's so many layers to church hurt, and I think, yeah, one of the reasons why I like that you're going to be on this episode to talk about it is because you're, like I said earlier, you're a very real person. You have real feelings toward this topic, and you're not going to shy away from them. And like every episode, we have a goal. We don't want to just like come in and bash the church, because we're invested in the church.
Yeah.
But there needs to be, and there should be an episode out before this talking about Jesus Gets Pissed, where we haven't recorded it yet because I'm recording everything out of order. But where we talk about like it is okay to be angry at certain things. Like there is a righteous anger, and church hurt's one of those things that I think the church should be way more angry about.
Oh, don't get me wrong. We are gonna bash today.
Yeah.
But however, we are going to offer, personal solutions that, the church can have, and also people themselves can have. So without,
Yeah. So, have you ever been hurt by the church? Let's just dive in.
Oh yeah, yeah. It seems that church hurt seems to follow me. I didn't grow up in church really, so I got involved in church as an adult. So my early 20s was when I started to get involved in church, and so I didn't know the complexities of church leadership and pastors and music ministers and youth pastors. Like I didn't know any of that stuff, and so when I decided to get involved, like I was finding passions that I had within the church that I wanted to be involved with. So I got involved in ministries, feeling like I wanted to have a certain spot within these ministries to help either lead or whatever it may be. And my first instance with it, I can look back and see that I might have been a little selfish in some of the things that I wanted, but as time has gone on, I've kind of grown beyond those feelings. But I remember wanting to lead worship at a church that I was attending, and it was a need that the church it needed to be filled, and the church was looking for solutions that I don't think were right for the church at the time, and I was available, and nothing other than me just wanting to, hone my skills. So as young leaders, you want to hone your skills, whether you're in church. That's one thing I want to talk about is like being in church, you're going to find leaders and they're not going to be, they're still going to be young. So you need to find ways to cultivate that leadership. So you're going to need to put people in positions to help them grow as leaders. So I was young, and there was a need that needed to be met, and I was willing to sacrifice my time to do this. I felt called at that point to do that. And when the situation, and I mean, to backtrack, I started to lead, but I wasn't fully embraced by leadership at that point until there was a moment where I was like, you know what, I don't like this limbo that I'm in. I don't like having a role but not really having a role. And I remember going to one of the pastors and just wanted to talk with him about how he felt about me in this position. And I remember being so hurt by what he said. He said, "You're good, but you're not that good." And I was like, okay. He says, "We'll use you until we find somebody that better fits the position." And so that was like a really heartbreaking scenario for me. I'd been investing in this, pouring into this, praying over this, wanting to do this, and never having it come to fruition. And so another opportunity presented itself, and I said, I just need to step away from this. Obviously, there's no purpose for me to keep going with it, even though it's something that I feel called to do, or what some of the people in the church felt called for me to do. Like, human will is going to have its way. And you can't, like, I couldn't force anything other than, I couldn't force that upon the leadership that, oh, I'm supposed to be here, I'm supposed to do this. No, the church leadership is going to have their way. So I left and went to another ministry.
You didn't feel like they did a good job of like cultivating and helping you grow?
No, not at all. There was no, they lacked the building up of future leaders. And that's one thing that I think churches suffer from a lot is the leadership acts as an enclosed ecosystem in and of itself. So if you are not in that circle, then you're not going to be uplifted the way you need to as a leader, or even be thought of as a potential leader. So unless you fit a certain role by some of these churches, you're never going to get any opportunity to serve beyond, what they're willing to give you. And I think a lot of church hurt derives from those situations, because you have people that want to serve, but for a given reason beyond their control, possibly, they're not given the opportunity.
Yeah, there's these like high expectations from the church leadership of what the volunteer needs to do to like earn their approval.
You're right.
But then the church leadership doesn't do anything to help that person reach the approval. And so the person is just left on their own. I felt that of, you're trying, you want to do a good job. You're in on the mission, you're in on the team, and then to have that person, that leader in the church say to you, yeah, but you're not doing a good enough job. And you're like, well,
yep,
I'm trying my best. If you want to give me some pointers, if you want to help me out, I'd take it.
Yeah.
And then just be like, yeah, no, it's just you.
Yeah. In the corporate world, you would see a different tactic on how to address that. You would see a strong leader within a company would see someone that has talent or see someone that has abilities, but they just need to be honed. Right? They just need to be dialed in. They will figure out a way to grow that person into becoming the leader that they need to be.
Yep.
That's what a strong company will do. A lot of churches are not strong companies, even though they are. They're not. They act like governments, in my opinion,
Yeah.
where people can just come in and talk a good game about what they do and continue to just roll with how things are and what they've always been done. See, that was the thing. Like the church that I was hurt by was trying to recreate things that had already been done. And I knew, even that early on, I knew that trying to recreate something was only going to leave you frustrated. And that's exactly what ended up happening later, is that they ended up hiring people to the church that were not wanting to fulfill the needs that needed to be met. And so there were just butting of heads and frustrated parents and frustrated church leaders and members and all this. And it's like, if you're not willing to do what's needed to be done to be the right kind of leader within your church, then you don't need to be there.
Yeah.
I read a quote right before this. Like, I was scrolling through Facebook, and it was ironic that it popped up, but it said, if the church caused you to lose your faith in God, then you obviously had more faith in the church, or man in this case, than you did in God. And that, I hate that more than anything, because that is church gaslighting at its most peak toxicity. I mean, here we have a culture within our church where we put so much emphasis on not church as in me, you, and Ryan getting together and doing something. They're talking of coming together corporately on Sunday morning and making sure that the presentation slides are right and the music audio is perfectly dialed in and the pastor has the right microphone and all these stupid things that, I don't mean to say stupid, but you know what I mean, like the things that are not important to the church collective, but just in the presentation of the church. We force that upon people that come into our church. So they're starting to put more faith and more emphasis on those things. Yep. And so when the church leadership hurts them, they get mad at God too. And it's hard not to not understand where they're coming from when they get mad at God, because they're putting all of this in man that they're told to entrust in man because that's what man is telling them to do.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're going to be mad at the God that all these people are telling you that all this stuff that we're doing is the reason for.
Yeah, that's interesting. I completely agree with you about that freaking quote too. I understand what people mean by it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a very ignorant thing to say, because it's like so much of a relationship should have been built in the church between you and that said leader. And so when that leader hurts you and you end up walking away from God, it's just like, well, you're the person who showed me who God was.
Right.
You're a huge part of my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it's because you probably put yourself in that position.
Mm-hmm.
But then, it's... I guess when people say that, they forget that the church is supposed to be a community.
Mm-hmm.
When you hurt someone, there should be some really strong feelings.
Yeah.
And this idea that you go to church and you don't have any feelings whatsoever is just so bonkers. 'Cause it goes back to that whole well, this is a business or a show that we're putting on, not an actual community that we're building. And but then something else you said that was, I feel like some of the reason a lot of church hurt happens is because of the control of, we have a bunch of control freaks as leaders, and and I've struggled with this because there's times that I know I've struggled with control of, like, I feel a whole lot better when I'm in control. I for the longest time with my friends, I was always the one driving. Not because I loved driving necessarily. It was just I like knowing when I'm gonna get somewhere and being in charge of. We're gonna get there at this time. And but then with church leadership, what happens so much is you have these leaders who they see an outcome that they have an outcome that they want. They want their church to be healthy and to make a huge impact on the community and to be the church that everyone wants to, like, be a part of, because maybe there's, like, good intentions in that. But then the tools they're working with, or the material they're working with, are a bunch of complex people who do things that have no reason behind it. Sometimes there's chaos. And so the church leader then feels, well, the only way I'm going to get the outcome to know I succeeded in this is I got to make sure I have a tight rein on these group of people. And so I'm going to put things in place to make sure that they turn out exactly how I want them to turn out so that we can get the outcome that I want us to have. And there's so many things wrong with that. And I've had to learn this, of when I'm feeling the need to control somebody, it usually has especially like when it comes to seeing someone's salvation come, it has more to do with me not trusting that God can change them. I'm not seeing the results I think I should be seeing, and so I then start putting things in place and forcing them to turn into the type of Christian I think they should be. And it's like, no, I don't. Thank God someone didn't do that to me, because I have taken so many wrong turns, and that's just part of the growth of being a Christian. Of, you're going to take some wrong turns, but in the end, you're going to hopefully reach the destination. And, like, God is way more patient than we are. But these church leaders, they just get wrapped up in that of, like, oh, no, I got to force them to turn out how I want them to. And then the other part of that is the outcome oftentimes that we're trying to get to is an outcome God never wanted. We want this perfect church that is, like, picture perfect. Our people don't have divorces. They don't commit adultery. They don't go to the bars. They don't cuss when they get angry. It's like, and they have the perfect theology. They never question their faith. They're perfect volunteers. And it's like, that would be really nice, but that is not reality. And also, how dare you put that expectation on others when you're not perfect either?
A lot of it comes from church leadership not really understanding conflict resolution when it comes to people. Like, they have a churn and burn mentality. Like, they know, and that's an okay mindset to have when it comes to business. But when it comes to the church, you have to look at it differently. You can't. I mean, you shouldn't look at it that way in business, but it's more forgiving, I guess you could say, in that realm than it would be in the church, because you're made up it's supposed to be a collective, a family of people coming together and worshiping God. That's what it's supposed to be. But then when you turn it into just volunteer positions because leadership doesn't want to take on these certain roles, like, we're going to have the lawn care ministry, and the guy's going to come out and mow the lawn every, week, whatever. And while that's good, and you're going to find somebody that loves to do it, but when that person gets to a point where they're like, you know what, I like doing, like, you're gonna run into where, and this is too common. Oh, I like doing it, but I don't want to do it this week. I've got something to do.
Yeah.
The church may let that slide one time, may let it slide two times, but there's some churches that are like, if you're not willing to commit to this, we're just going to ask you to step away from this ministry, blah, blah. Come up with some sort of excuse to not let them be a part anymore, or whatever it is. That was something that I had to deal with at a church, was being told my lack of commitment. And that set me over the edge. Like, taking time off for myself, or trying to understand the feelings that I was having. Mm-hmm. A church that's unable to, especially church leadership, is unable to understand the feelings of the people that are there. You're going to see church hurt.
Yep.
I mean, volunteers were never meant to be burnt out.
Yep.
Volunteers were never meant to be felt like they're just a tool to be used in a bigger machine. That was never what this was meant to be. And then when they start to feel that way, that's when resentment comes in. That's when I never want to go back to church, forget this, whatever feelings that they're having stems from not being understood.
Yeah. You're expecting these volunteers to work 40-hour weeks like you do, but then not get paid or compensated or even just thanked.
It's toxic.
And like I'm someone who I put in a lot of hours at our church, but I made the decision of I don't want to be paid. I chose a job that allows me to not be paid. Mm-hmm. Like, this was a personal decision.
Right.
I would never expect another person to make that decision.
Yeah.
If you do, cool. If you don't, also cool.
Yeah.
Because the amount of hard work and effort you end up putting into things, especially if you're trying to do your best as a volunteer, and say you're teaching Sunday school once a month, that should be like an all week thing. Of you're working on that lesson all week. Of you're putting hours in, you're trying to get your thoughts right. You're taking time away from maybe your family or friends or whatever it is. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that. Mm-hmm. And that's just saying you do one lesson.
Yeah.
And so the volunteers need to be appreciated way more, and the church leaders need to understand how much is actually like sacrifices going into what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's forgotten.
Yeah, because often when someone is let go from their volunteer position, or they're deciding to leave the church because of the reason, to hear what church leadership has to say about that is more heartbreaking than the leaving in the first place. Because you hear them talk like, oh, they just weren't aligned with our vision, or their faith just wasn't where it needed to be, or whatever excuse the church is going to put out there that oftentimes just falls back on them. If you're seeing a lot of people leaving a church, it's hard to put the blame on the people leaving.
Yep.
But because of our toxic culture within church,
yeah,
we let leadership just continue on doing what they're doing and hurting people and burning people out. Yeah. And so when I hear somebody that doesn't want to go to church, I don't blame them all that much, because we haven't given them a reason as to why they would want to continue to go through it. Like, when I came to the bridge, this was my last go around at a church. Like, I'd seen too many people in my past get hurt by church that I see that they live good lives outside of being in corporate church. Mm-hmm. And I want that. And I was like, I want that life. I just want to be at peace. I don't want to be stressed. So I came to the bridge, and it was where I needed to be. And the reasons why it was different is because when I chose to serve on my own free will.
Yep.
Here. And when a situation arose where I needed to take a step back for a moment, I wasn't met with resistance or resentment.
Yeah.
I was met with compassion and understanding. And so it wasn't like I was getting pushed out and never allowed back in. It was take your time and come back when you're ready, and we're here for you.
Yeah.
So, church hurt. Mine's racing a million miles a minute. Right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to edit that part out.
That's good. You know, so I think fear takes a place in this of you have the church leaders fearing you're not going to have the church that, which is, again, I just hate that. I never want to enter into a relationship with somebody and look at them and say, if you don't have this, I don't know, these unrealistic expectations, if you don't meet my unrealistic expectations of you, then I don't want to have a relationship. Like, I don't want to be that guy. And so much of the church, like you said, is supposed to be a family. It's supposed to be a hospital for the broken. You look at Jesus' ministry, and so much of it is done with people who they do things constantly that Jesus wouldn't agree with, maybe he wouldn't align with, but he's toughing it out. That's what love is. He's toughing it out with them, and he's being patient with them as they become the type of people that he's called them to be. And in church culture, we're so set on trying to be the next Hillsong or whatever whatever church you freaking look up to. It could be Johnny Mac's church. That boring. Yeah. But whatever your goals are for your church, like, it's so, I think you're objectifying people.
Mm-hmm.
You're not treating them as, like, your church is very different than any other church you're going to go to. There's going to be similarities, but your people come from very different backgrounds. And to do church well, I think you have to give up on the idea that your church, I would hope that the Bridge 10 years from now is better than we are today. But I don't want to force our church to get there, because there's going to be times where, like, our church is just, we're going to need to step back and regroup.
Yeah. Well,
There's going to be the ebbs and flows. It's not the constant incline.
Yeah. I think what sets, I mean, by no means am I saying every church is evil and vindictive, or, you know, trying to crush people's spirits. I'm not saying that. There's I believe there's more out there than we want to admit, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But the situation here at the Bridge, we have a compassionate leadership, and I think that comes from people being hurt by the church or going through something to really understand empathy, and I think that's something that leadership needs to have. Your pastor needs to be able to put themselves in your shoes.
Yep.
And when I mean your shoes, the shoes of the congregant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't, like, when someone's experiencing something within church that is causing them pain or frustration, you don't gaslight them. Mm-hmm. You don't, tell them to get over it. You wouldn't do that to a family member of yours or a kid or your wife. Like, tell your wife to get over something, and you'll see how successful that is. But it's the same for church members. I mean, if someone is giving of their time, come on, you can give of your time, and that stems from, lack of empathy stems from, fueling an ego. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen pastors get frustrated that another member of the church outshines them, and how they feel like they have to do something to regain their limelight.
Yep.
I was part of a youth program years ago, and that youth program like exploded, and the person that was leading it just had this magnetic personality, and so much so that it took away from the lead pastor, and you could sense there was frustration there, and there was a moment that he tried to take it over, the pastor, and it just fell apart. And you could see that like God was moving within the group with the person that was the outsider that came in just loving on young people. And this person, their ego was, taking over, and
Yep.
them wanting to get the limelight. And, God cares about the church.
Mm-hmm.
He cares about his people. But I don't think he cares so much when a corporation falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a corporate church falls apart, I don't think he is that disappointed in the system falling down.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That was something I was thinking about on the way up here. You kind of hit on it earlier. I don't have a problem with. I don't get like really like I don't know, bent out of shape when someone tells me they gave up on church.
yeah.
Not only because I can understand their frustrations.
Yeah.
But then I'm also like, yeah, well, I don't think we're really doing church the way that church was designed to be done. Like,
No.
it's so much of a corporation of business. It's like a Sunday show, and it's not a community, which is what it was intended to be. And so when people say, yeah, I gave up on church, I'm like, okay. Like the thing that we do on Sundays where we get together but don't talk to each other for an hour, okay, that doesn't bother me. You probably have, I don't know, I'm not going to say a better time. As long as that person's in community, that's what I care about.
Yeah. I mean, every element of our church here, I love.
Mm-hmm.
The beautiful thing is all those elements that I love about our church can exist beyond these four walls.
Yep.
I love the community that we have. We don't have to be in this building to have that community, and that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
My pastor, I love his sermons, but they don't have to be within these four walls.
Mm.
I could see the sermon online. The music, I mean, you kind of want to have it within this realm, but it can exist elsewhere.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Nothing is contingent on me coming here that I have to be in this building, and it's just a plus to coming here, and
makes it easier for me to meet more of the family.
Yeah. I know here, and being, in a somewhat position of leadership here, you see the inner workings, and that can accelerate church hurt if you're on leadership or in a position. That can accelerate the church hurt, but what helps is that no one is here for their own personal gain. You hear preachers, that, oh, God's called me to this church. And oftentimes it's the bigger church down the road, or going from a small pastoral position to an even bigger pastoral position. And God never calls you to the demotion somewhere. It seems like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but you never really hear about it all that much. But like, people see that stuff, and like now people are more aware of how corporatized the church has become. So they're seeing things differently. I mean, church hurt doesn't always have to be just about the leadership, turning away someone from serving. It can be church hurt as seeing someone giving. Like, I couldn't imagine being someone of, really bad, financial means, coming to church and hearing someone from a very, privileged position, talk about, how they need to give more. Like, I would be frustrated giving my last little bit to a church and getting, I mean, you don't expect anything in return, but when you're giving your last little bit and you're seeing, leadership squander it, that would make me not want to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, I to know that not all, and I keep saying this because this isn't a blanket statement, but it is something that we don't want to talk about because we're told not to talk about it by leadership. That a lot of times church leaders don't work. They don't do anything. And so when people see that and they ask so much of people, that's where hurt comes in. When they see a pastor that, could be bivocational but chooses not to because they don't want to.
Yeah. That's the thing is, like, for me personally, one of the reasons I've tried to guard against getting paid or like compensated anyway by the church is because I don't want the line. I like there being a distinction, I guess, of like my faith is a very personal thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But once I start getting paid to have a certain type of faith, and there's certain demands on my faith and certain demands on how I get other people's faiths to cooperate, that's where it's like it's really messy to me. Of church is supposed to be such a personal thing to you. Christianity is such a personal experience, and we do it together. But then we start. I think that's part of the issue is like sometimes we get so wrapped up as church leaders, and I've been guilty of this. You get wrapped up in trying to lead the church that you forget that it's easy to go through the motions of church life, church business, and forget why you're doing things or the heart behind it, or even like how you're supposed to have a personal relationship with Jesus, but you're too busy preparing the next fire sermon or getting the next Bible study started so that you can reach these end of the year goals or what, or even like the common thing I've seen is like church leaders who they want the appearance that our church is doing more than we're actually doing.
Yeah.
And so they're forcing things to start taking place in their church that aren't natural for their church.
Yeah.
Like when I gave the announcement this Sunday about the goal of the podcast, and it was, my goal isn't for you to listen to the podcast and that be it. What a freaking, there's 1,000 podcasts you could listen to for that. My goal is for you to listen to the podcast, be challenged, and go have dinner with a stranger and to love them well. There needs to be that should be what the goal of the church is. It shouldn't be that we have this amazing youth ministry or this amazing children's ministry and all these other classrooms filled in our church. It should be what is naturally happening in your church and how can we encourage and cultivate that more. And
the world the world's understood that. They understand how to build community and culture better than the church does right now, which is bonkers.
Yeah.
I mean, but what you were saying though, and I said it earlier, is that we're we're teaching people how to be good church members and not how to be Christ followers.
Yep.
And that's a huge difference, because you can teach anybody how to, get involved in something. I mean, you can teach somebody how to do a job, but them doing the job and them loving the job are two different things.
Yep.
Like, you love what you do, but
you think about too, and this, me and Robbie have talked, maybe in private. I don't really buy into the whole church membership is biblical thing, because I don't think it is. Of church membership is, there are requirements. Like, I know pastors who, they have a list of things you have to fulfill in order to be a member of their church. And where, for me, I just, it's like I'm tapping out of this idea is, but Jesus didn't ever do that. Like, he called people to a different way of doing life, but he didn't expect results overnight. He expected of, like, I'm going to have to walk through life with these people, and we're slowly going to be chipping away at things. But he was open. He's like, anybody can come. You're not going to, not all of us, I've been reading this book called Dominion by Tom Holland, and it goes through like church history. And one of the things that I really has helped me fall in love with Christianity more is how Christianity is a very progressive religion. Of there's a lot of things we do now that the early church did not do. And it doesn't mean the things we're doing now is bad. It's just, as like people do, as you grow, you start adding things to your life. You start figuring out what things work, what things don't. If you're eating food that hurts your stomach, over time you start picking up on that. You're like, I'm going to stop eating that food. Mm-hmm. And you put different things in place. And what was interesting was the early church, as those first few hundred years, you're seeing this progression of, they didn't even call it Christianity early on. They called it the Way, which is a way cooler name.
Is.
Like, screw, or I'm not going to say that. The Way is awesome.
Whoa.
Yeah. But they called it the Way.
Yeah.
And they didn't call church. They called it a love feast. It was a very like personal, family building relationships and community thing, and they literally had a feast. That's why it was called the love feast. Of these people who love each other, they have no connections with each other other than they love each other and they love this Jesus guy. Get together and they have a meal together, and I thought that was so interesting, because it's like, well, that's a very natural way of doing faith.
Well, that's just a natural way of doing pretty much anything.
Yeah. And then as I kept reading, you're realizing, oh my God. And we kind of talked about this in the men's group Sunday, of there's an expectation for Christians to believe certain doctrines. Forgetting not everyone grew up in church. Not everyone understands the idea of what we believe Christianity is. As I'm looking back at the early church, they didn't have a concept of the Trinity yet. They knew God was complex and He's Father, Son, Spirit, but they couldn't explain the Trinity to you. They didn't have that terminology, just like they didn't have the terminology for Christianity. And you're one of the people who stood out was this guy named Origen. Origen's controversial in church history because he doesn't have Orthodox Christian beliefs. But then you understand the time and you're like, well, no, the Council of Nicaea never happened. No one knew. Christianity was new. They're figuring it out as they go. They're trying to base it on Jesus' teachings, and they're trying to figure out which ones are essential and which ones are like secondary. And at that time, it was interesting because he was raised Christian. His parents died for the faith when he was a young kid. And then he goes on and he ends up being tortured for the faith. He's in love with Jesus. He devotes his life to Jesus. He ends up being tortured for the faith. And years later, he would die because of the wounds he had. But then people would be like, well, his salvation is questionable because he didn't line up with our idea of Christianity 2,000 years later. And it's like, but isn't it interesting that he didn't have all the answers and yet he was still willing to die for it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, my God, he has more heart than any of us.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand how Jesus was fully God and fully man. He knew something was complex about it, but they didn't. Again, they're figuring it out as they go.
Yeah.
And yet he's willing to give his life for it.
Yeah.
And it was challenging because I'm like, man, we put so much expectations on people in the church to, like one of the struggles I've had is there's been times where I haven't believed in some of the core doctrines. Thank God for a person like Robbie who's like, but I see your heart, Austin. It's not like you hate Jesus and that's why you're questioning core doctrines. You love Jesus and you're trying to understand him the best way you can. And so there's going to be seasons where you're doubting the resurrection and seasons where you're fully confident in the resurrection. And that's okay because you're human. Sometimes we have, in the church, we have this list of expectations of, well, if you go to a bar on Friday night, then, and you said something at the beginning about how the people who say, I left Christianity, or I left God because of people in the church. And it's like interesting because those same people who caused them to leave the faith would say, well, you shouldn't have had that much faith in me to begin with.
Exactly.
But then that same pastor who would have said that is the same pastor that tells you not to go to the bar on Friday night.
Right.
Because, oh, well, you're representing Jesus. And what if you're the reason someone doesn't come to Jesus?
Yep.
And we forget that as church leaders, we're responsible too for the people in our congregation of how do we represent Jesus to them. Are we slave drivers or are we shepherds? You know?
Yeah, I mean, those situations, like, I hate them. I absolutely hate them because, I'll go out to dinner. I'll have a beer with my meal. I'll have a wine with my meal. Like, I think dealing with so much of that ridiculous church mumbo jumbo stuff that I just don't care anymore. Like, I remember I shared a meme one time and it had a cuss word in it and I didn't realize it. And then I got called out by leadership saying, oh, you can't be posting this stuff on Facebook because it might look bad on the church, blah, 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 blah. And, like, sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And in that case, I was like, I mean, they're words. Mm-hmm. Like, we give too much power to words, you know?
So what is your, like...
What are your intentions behind it? Like, that's where the understanding people comes into play. Like, dude, I mean, I can understand, like, me and you sitting down and just talking stuff out. Like, hey, bro, like, that post the other day, what's going on? Like, not accusing you of anything, but trying to understand you. Mm-hmm. There's a difference there. Talking about friendship, that's one thing I love about the friends that I'm with now is that I cannot feel I don't feel judged by the people that are in my life now. And that's because I've chosen to get rid of all that toxic weight of, you know, hey man, like, I'm holier than thou and you shouldn't be doing this stuff because I am the ultimate leader in this. Like, come on, dude. Like, no. I'm sorry. You don't have that much power over me. Yeah. No, the only entity that does is God.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as part of a solution to some of this church hurt that we deal with is, we put a lot of faith in the people in our church because we want to believe the people God put in this place are of good intention. And sometimes they're not. And we have to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. And instead of taking it out on God, because God may have called that person to that job or that position. or that leadership role. But God can't make them be the version that he wants them to be. All God can do is lay out the path before them, and they choose to take it. I screw up a lot of God's blessings in my life. I can't, and a lot of people can say that.
Yeah.
But admitting the faults within you, or in my case, myself, to understand, oh yeah, that opportunity I squandered because of this, not because, God just wanted, or Satan was trying to, screw me over. No, it's just you being you at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's what it is in this case. And so I think a lot of it is understanding that people are just, I'm not trying to gaslight, someone that's being hurt, like, oh, they're people, they're just being people. No, understand that God, and
I think it's just part of the human experience is people are going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, when it comes to church, finding a church, being a part of a church, you have to keep that in mind of somewhere down the road, I'm going to be hurt by someone, not everyone. I don't know what your situation is, but someone in this church is probably going to hurt me. And I have to make that distinction of this is a person, this is not God.
Yeah, you can't let God, you can't let the person be the reason that you lose faith in God. Like, I made that decision very early on in my faith that, I have a faith in God because of how he revealed himself to me, not because of the positions I hold within church. And I think a lot of young people that grow up in church are more susceptible to church hurt than, new believer. I mean, not saying that new believers are the only people that experience it or won't experience it, but they grow up listening to the system and believing the system and believing that the church incorporated is the only way to cultivate, a relationship with Jesus, or that being the only method in creating church that we know, like the coming together of believers. And so when you see a fault in it, you leave church and then you leave God behind because you've entangled the two together when the two are separate but connected.
Yep. Yeah. I think, God is very honest about that. Of you, if you're really reading your Bible, you'll see constantly all the warning signs of, church people are God's people are a mess.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly backstabbing each other, treating each other, not caring for each other.
Yeah.
And when you read the Bible, sometimes where we get, I remember this passage, I've mentioned it before, of in the Psalms where David is just going off on people. He's like, yo, screw these sinners. They suck. Burn them down. God, come get them. And I remember someone asking me, what do you do about that? Like, why would God say that? I was like, you got to remember, God didn't say that. It's part of his collective word. But sometimes the way God's communicating his message is through broken vessels. And so you can see where God's speaking in this is not his actual writing. This is David's writing. And you can see David's heart and how broken it is and how broken of a man he is. But then you can compare that with God's heart all throughout the scriptures and see just how different the two are. Of man is a person who hurts constantly. Hurt people.
Right.
But God he's not that.
Yeah.
He's someone coming in to heal people. And so when you can distinguish that, not only in the Bible, it's going to help you distinguish that when you enter church relationships with people and you get hurt by them. If you can say, I can see where this pastor treated me terribly, but I can also see where God's heart is.
Yeah. The resolution of a lot of church has to come from the top. Mm-hmm. It's not the person hurt. It's not their responsibility to truly understand everything about why they're being hurt. You know, if, a leader in your church is saying that you're not committed enough because you don't do one thing one Sunday or one Wednesday or whatever it is, it's not the person being called out by the leader. It's the leader that needs to take a look at themselves and go, okay, what is it about this situation that is really causing me to be upset at this person?
Yep.
Am I upset that they believe that something was more important than church? Am I upset because they left me out to dry and now I have one less position to help serve in this event or service or whatever it is that's now causing me more stress because now I have to find another person? Like, the leader needs to figure that out and not take it out on the volunteer, because what will happen is that volunteer will then internalize that hurt and say, well, maybe I am an awful person for bailing. And that's terrible for the leader to let that person feel that way when it's not their paid job. I mean, they're not on staff. Life happens, or feelings happen. The leader needs to go to them and go, okay, what's going on? I remember one time I was going through a really bad situation, and I was going to bail out, or not bail out, but I had to step out for a minute. And I went to the leadership and I said, listen, I really need to, take a step back for a minute. And I don't feel like I can do what I need to do in my position. And I was met with so much pushback of, I can't believe you would do this right now, now, of all times now, blah, 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 blah. And I just remember feeling so, as a volunteer, I remember feeling so, like, terrible, I'd already felt bad. Now I feel worse because these people are making me feel bad instead of coming at it from an angle of compassion and understanding of where I was at. Eventually, they had to understand that I wasn't going to be in that position at that time, but it took way too long for them to understand that and feel compassion about it. And we're not going to get over church hurt until leadership can accept its responsibility in the causation. Oh, well, their faith just wasn't strong enough, I guess, for them to fall away like that. Like, nah, bro, you're part of the problem, and you have to accept that. You're not an awful person, but you need to understand that you're part of the problem, and gaslighting people into believing that they are the problem is only going to cause more and more people not to want to be involved in church. And we want people to want to be involved.
Yeah.
But accepting your role and going, yeah, maybe I was a bit harsh.
Yeah.
Or maybe I was putting too much on their plate. Or maybe I was making them feel neglected.
Yeah.
I mean, church staff believes that they are that they can do no wrong, most of them.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't like to see or be a part of. And
yeah, I'm real big on self-reflection of there's so many blind spots I have that obviously, because they're blind spots, I cannot see. And I would hate it to know that someone felt hurt because of something I did.
Yeah.
Especially because that's not my goal. I don't intentionally get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go hurt some people in our church. And so when I hear someone say, well, I felt hurt by you, I want to press in and say, okay, well, can you walk me through, like, what did I do that made you feel this way? And maybe there's been times where they had serious issues with me, and I was like, okay, they may have some valid reasons. So I'm going to take them to go get coffee, I'm going to hear their story. I'm just going to ask questions. I'm not going to dog them or make them feel bad. I just want to understand why they feel the way they do. And I'm going to start at the beginning. I want to understand their life story. And by the end, I did not feel like I had hurt them or done anything. Their reasons for having issues with me were personal to them. They just are a very insecure person.
Mm-hmm.
But then the way I even handled that part of realizing like, okay, well this isn't really a me problem, it's a them problem.
Mm-hmm.
Was I was like, okay, well I'm a press and I'm going to encourage them. And so there was a moment where we like really got into it, and because they had said something, I was like, no, we're nipping this now because it can like it's causing damage. Like the person was going around spreading gossip about me and like tearing my reputation down. I'm like, if you would have got to know me at the beginning, you know this isn't true. But people getting coffee with strangers isn't everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And so I had to like maybe I handled this right, maybe I don't know. But the goal was to handle it in a right way of I was very heated, and I was like, I love you. I want you to know that. I don't have an issue with you. You are an intelligent person. And I just started going through the things I liked about them. I was like, I don't know if you don't understand this because you haven't honestly taken the time to understand it, but I'm not out to get you. Here's all the things I've actually loved about you, and I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful you're a part of our church. You encouraged me. And it was this moment where I watched them as they like settled back, and they had to like come to terms with the fact that, oh, Austin, he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
Of that, I watched that person as they came to terms with the fact that this was a them problem. But I don't say that to say that that's the case with everything. There's been times with friends where they've brought an issue to me. A good example is my buddy Doug. He doesn't mind me sharing this because we talk about it all the time. Doug has at times felt like I wasn't as present in our friendship as he wanted me to be. And I had a better example was when we were in high school. Me and Doug didn't live too far from each other. He lived right down the road. He could walk to my house anytime. I don't like hanging out with people every day. I need me time. I need to like have space to just be alone from people's thoughts and just people in general.
Yep.
Doug is not that way at all. Doug loves to be around people constantly and up in their grill, not giving them space at all. And so Doug would come over to the house every day. And after a while, he started to realize, Austin seems like really grumpy. And at a certain point, we were talking about it years later, and I was like, yeah, you piss me off when you come over, because I don't want you coming over constantly. I don't know why you want to be around me constantly. And Doug was like, we were talking about it, he's like, oh man, I'm really sorry, I didn't know that. I was like, you don't need to say sorry, because you're not the problem. I didn't ever communicate that to you. I never communicated that I need personal space. I'm the problem. I can't be mad at you because you want to spend time with me. What a whack thing to do. I'm the issue. I'm the person who has so much issues that I needed that much personal space. And that, again, I couldn't communicate that to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the problem. Like, I need to be asking for your forgiveness. But that's just an example of, I had to come to terms with that. I had to do self-reflection and spend some time and say, Austin, why do you get mad when people are all up in your space? It's not their fault. They don't know. It's my fault. Yeah. I don't communicate, and maybe I'm being really selfish with my time.
Yeah.
But then that's where that practice of like daily self-reflecting, of like part of why I journal is when I journal, I can look back at what I wrote and see, oh, dude, you're really off there.
Yeah.
And it helps you too get, if you have issues in the church with, it wasn't too long ago that I had issues with stuff at the bridge. Things weren't going the way I wanted them to go. And even if I felt like where I wanted things to go was right, sometimes the way I would communicate them would be wrong. And I had to come to terms with that.
Yeah, we're never going to completely negate conflict in church. Like, even in the best circumstances, conflict is going to arise. The best marriages have conflict. But it's understanding like how to best resolve the conflict. One thing that church leadership needs to get a better grasp on is understanding that while you expect things out of your volunteers, you have every right to expect things out of your volunteers, you have to be ready for your volunteers to have expectations from you. Mm-hmm. And if you ignore those expectations, you're going to get pushback, or they're going to want to leave.
Yep.
You're going to that member is going to experience church hurt, and how you address that situation is how they're going to view you. So if you don't have good conflict resolution, when someone presents their expectations out of leadership and all you do is push back and say, how dare you ask of these things, like you're supposed to be willing to serve, or whatever excuse you want to give, they're already hurt. And you choosing to double down on the reasons why they're hurt is only going to make the situation worse.
Yep.
So if you can't come at it from okay, so what are your expectations? And that they present them to you and they seem reasonable, work together.
Yeah.
It's the whole point. Your leadership position is not you with puppet strings. Your leadership is to help guide the church in a better relationship with God. Mm-hmm. So it falls back on the conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And self-reflection is a big part of understanding how conflict resolution incorporates itself into church. If all you're doing is, expecting things out of people and them not getting the reciprocation of that and them leaving and them feeling hurt, I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about me from previous churches, from leadership telling other members of, what I did wrong. I'm the small voice. I'm the voice that no one cares to hear because I'm not the leadership. I'm not the one on stage. I'm not the one making the decision. So it's easy for leadership to dog on people that choose to leave or are forced out or never asked to come back. Leadership has to own their decisions.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
It's really key. Yeah. Church leaders need to come to terms with the fact that they are in a very privileged position, and people will take their word for things way more than they think.
Most definitely.
I've heard pastors say before of like, when someone leaves our church, people don't ever ask like my side, and there may be cases where that is true, for whatever reason that pastor's story never got told.
Maybe.
But there's also, I think, a disconnect of you haven't been a member in so long of a church that you forgot how often your voice is overshadowing others. Of you have the loudest voice in your congregation. People are listening to you way more than they're listening to the member who got disgruntled. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that...
It's like celebrities. I mean, people get hurt by we as humans, we can see situations and we can, discern like who was really at fault here. Mm-hmm. So when you look at people getting mad, like you'll hear people like celebrities talk about like, I get so many emails a day and how they talk to me is as if they know me. Well, some celebrities understand that these people get so invested in who they are because they see them on a daily basis. But the celebrities don't see these people that are emailing them or messaging them on whatever. And so you hear them talk, and it's kind of heartbreaking to hear them talk about these people that are invested in them, going, they act like they know me, blah 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 blah. Well, in a case,
vlog every day.
yeah, or like they see you in all their favorite, like you're their favorite actor in their favorite movie, and so of course they're going to treat you like a best friend. That's how they view you. And so it's the same thing happens for church pastors and worship leaders and anybody that's in that role that they see on a regular basis and they look up to. When those people hurt you, you take that really personal. And so as church leaders, you have to understand, like, the hurt you cause is real.
Yep.
And you can't just ignore it and just go, well, somebody else will come in their place, or they needed to have a better relationship with God, or whatever excuse they want to give. You can't go through life that way. It's not successful to live life that way as just a human being in general, but as a leader in a church, it's even more abhorrent to be that kind of person, to just brush off pain and hurt.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I wrote down too that I think is the reason why some leaders end up hurting people is the selfishness and the pride of, you have to be constantly on guard about that, because it is so easy to get wrapped up in, if you're on stage every Sunday or you're constantly in the congregation's like visible eye, there's going to be a level of pride that tries to seep in, because people are going to tell you did a good job. Like, we were talking about this before the podcast, of there are a lot of bad preachers out there, bad sermons, but they have successful ministries because people could care less if their sermon was good or if their preaching was good. You can be a crappy musician in church and people are still going to give you a standing ovation because the bar is so low. It's a whole nother conversation.
It's weird.
Yeah.
You could be so bad at a sermon or whatever, just because of maybe your personality or who you are outside of church gives you that. It's so weird.
So you'll receive praise over things that maybe you shouldn't even be receiving praise for.
Right.
But that's just the nature of the church. But the question I'm constantly wrestling with is, are you praising others? Are you using those opportunities where you're in the spotlight to shine the spotlight on others? I love rap music. My favorite rappers, the people that they grew up with, their buddies, they always bring them up with this. I love Kevin Hart, because all his buddies that he started at the bottom with, as he became more successful, he created opportunities for them to be successful.
That's good.
And I think that's something one of those things where it's like you look at the world and you're like, the world's doing this better than us. There's a lot of pastors out there who become these one-man shows. Well,
they don't want to. Kevin Hart doesn't care if his buddies outshine him at some point. Like, he doesn't care if, I gave one of my friends the platform to be successful, and now he's the number one comic in the world. Like, Kevin Hart doesn't care. He's happy.
Yeah.
Because he knows that either he's sitting at his table and all his friends are successful, or he's going to sit at his friend's table where they're all successful. But most pastors don't want to live like that. Some want to just have the table all to themselves, and they don't want to create leaders. They just want to create mindless volunteers. They're not willing to eventually have somebody possibly outshine them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that, unfortunately, for pastors nowadays, they lack, and this isn't to sound mean, but it's just reality. A lot of pastors nowadays lack any life skill other than preaching.
Yeah.
And that can cause a lot of insecurities in a man or in a person just in general. When I you can see it. Like, I can look at a group of people surrounded by a pastor, and some of these people lead successful businesses, have really good careers, are talented individuals that are able to monetize their talents. And you see a guy that does one thing on Sunday morning, and you can see how someone can feel inadequate around his peers when, oh my gosh, this guy runs a multi-million-dollar company and he has a skill set to do this certain thing, and this guy right here, is this kind of trade and whatnot. But like, you can see how, all I do is preach sermons on Sunday morning. Like, not saying that it's not, it's a skill, don't get me wrong, but I mean, when you're around people that, they can't fall back on, status quo and what, like, businesses can't just, well, this is what we've always done. A business that does that ends up failing. Mm-hmm. Churches can somehow get away with that mentality, or we're just going to do just enough to make it okay, like barely good. Like, going to McDonald's, you're getting barely good enough food.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting a lot when I go into McDonald's. I expect to get exactly, what I get. When I go to a fine restaurant, I expect something completely different. And that's because they're putting in all the effort versus McDonald's just putting in the minimum effort and you're getting the minimum return.
Yeah. I think the way you fight that selfishness as a church leader, you fight that pride, is you find every opportunity you can to highlight what God is doing in other people's lives. Like, it is a very ignorant thing to believe that God's only working in your life, and you got to share all that with others, because God ain't doing nothing in theirs. God is doing way more in the church than what we see on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. There's so many people who they're going to their workplaces and changing the work environments completely because of what God's doing in their lives. They go into these toxic work environments, but they're such a good worker that they get promoted to the next level and they can actually start making changes to the environment. Like, that's God working in their lives. And so finding the areas, which means you got to get to know your people, which is it's not that hard. Just go get coffee. Do something. My God.
The simplicity.
Of just take an interest in your people.
Yeah.
They listen to you talk so much. You could take just 1 hour a month with that one person and listen to them and just get to know them and see how God is actually working in them. And there's going to be things that maybe raise your concerns, but there's always going to be something that God is doing in their life that you need to identify and you need to encourage. One of the things I love about my boss is I came into the shop not knowing anything about woodworking or physical labor, period. But he noticed that I really care about detail, and I'm really big on that. And so that's an area he encouraged me on. Of, hey, you're good at you really care about detail a lot. Well, here's how you can care about detail when it comes to woodworking. Of, you really I don't know. He just found areas where I maybe was more naturally gifted in, and he chose to highlight those in an effort to be able to speak into the other areas. And I think as church leaders, we just got to do a really good job of finding those areas that we can highlight in others, and like using every opportunity we can to highlight them. Of when there's someone in your church who is really with the podcast this next season, we're recording this before we recorded a lot of the other episodes. We're going to have a ton more guests on. And the way I'm going about it is I want to highlight areas that people have a natural giftedness in and use this as an opportunity to bring them in, to kind of shine a light on them and what God's doing in their lives. And so that's me. Robbie blessed me with the spotlight, so to say, of letting me do the podcast. Well, then I'm taking that and I'm saying, okay, well, how can I use the thing that I have control of in our church to then shine the light on others? And then even long term, how can we capitalize on that? Of if I see our women in our church, amazing teachers, freaking, they outrun the men by far. If I can see them and see how amazing they are, well, how can I bless them with an opportunity to like really grow in their giftedness and skill of teaching? Well, maybe that means I give them a whole podcast that they do each week on their own. That doesn't take away from Into the Fray or what I'm doing.
Nope.
I don't want to do this forever. I love doing the podcast. It's fun. But I think something we've talked about before, me, you, and Ryan, is we're always looking for someone, our next replacement. I want to see someone come in behind me, use all the tools I've acquired over the years, but then add on to that tool set and even go farther.
Yeah.
Because that's progression.
A true leader is willing to invest in the people around him, and if they see talent, then they cultivate that talent. They don't just allow it to sit in a pot and just, be behind them and not really grow to their full potential. None of these, like I've come to understand it. It's a hard thing as a volunteer to really grasp on, but I've had to do it over time. Is that the positions that we're in, they're not ours. They're God's, and God can put whoever He deems is the best fit for that spot.
Yep.
And so, whether it be up on stage or doing anything for the church, design wise or whatnot, none of that is my spot.
Yeah. And
volunteers need to understand that none of the spots that they're in are their spots. So if other people are gonna share that spot with you, you have to be willing to share it. But at the same time, church leadership needs to understand that too.
Yep.
That the pastoral spot is only there because God put it there. The worship leader spot's only there because God put it there. And if someone is coming up behind you that is better fit for that spot, you have to be willing and understanding to either move on to the next project for you or to step down.
Yep.
I only know of 2 areas in life where people can die in the position that they're in, like a pastor or anything like that. A man can die as a pastor, and a man can die as a politician. And I find those 2 parallels to be extremely alarming, and there should never be a position where someone can die in that position.
Yeah. It reminds me of I love this when I found this out, because I feel like it gave a new edge to my view of Christianity, of when Jesus says, come follow me, I want to make you fishers of men. He's not like we freaking take that like Southern Baptist people from Georgia do, and we say, oh, see, he's being clever. It's like, no, he's not being clever. That was a saying back then of when a rabbi called his students, new students, to follow him, he would repeat that phrase, I will make you fishers of men. And fishers of men in that culture was just another way of saying, I'm going to make you a great teacher. And Jesus is saying to his students, come follow me. I'm going to make you like me. I'm going to make you into a great teacher. I'm going to take you and you're going to replace me. Don't take that too far. But
I totally.
How amazing is that?
Yeah.
He is the perfect Son of God. He's saying, come, I want you guys, you mess of people who I have, like we're just starting the relationship. We even got 3 years into the ministry yet. Mm-hmm. I want you to take my spot. So for the next 3 years, I'm going to walk with you. And at the end of the 3 years, you're not even going, like you would have abandoned me, like right before I leave. But you guys are the people I want to take my spot.
And generations after you are going to look up to you, even though you feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Because you're humbled by the experience of experiencing the resurrection. Like, no, that's a lot. That is a lot to.
It's so. That's where like discipleship gets so like forgotten. Of the church's goal is for all of us to become more like Jesus, not for just one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that means we gotta step aside and we gotta be way more inviting to other people and say, hey, you have a part in this too. Christianity isn't just me preaching on every Sunday, it's you preaching too.
Yep.
Whether that is literally you preaching on a Sunday or you proclaiming the gospel wherever you're at and whatever job title you have.
Mm-hmm.
And encouraging, like, we should be building each other up.
Right.
Saying like, yeah, Chase, you go with when you're creating graphics and logos for people, you go proclaim the good news in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you would do for me with cabinets. As I go to build cabinets, I do it to the best of my ability, proclaim the good news in my space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I don't know, it just, to me, it makes our faith family way more bigger and more exciting because there's so much potential and the world's like expanding.
Mm-hmm.
You can see just how much is possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
There's a lot to unpack with all that stuff. So, but I mean, the gist of understanding church hurt and dealing with church hurt is understanding that people are people on both sides. So for me and how I learned to cope with the church hurt is I did understand, like I didn't come at it from a naive point of view of, oh, people are people. They're just going to hurt me. No, I understand people. So I understand where that hurt's coming from. When a pastor tells me that I'm no longer needed for something because I don't align with the vision, or I'm not committed enough, or I'm not talented enough, I know, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, I know that comes from a place of insecurity in someone else. And so I myself I try not to be mad at that person, even though there may be a moment in time where I am upset at that person. But I understand that a human is a human. And so I accept that situation for what it is, and I accept my exit, but I don't take it out on God, because God can't control the emotions of that human being. Only that human being can.
Yeah.
And so, but on the flip side too, a leader needs to understand their emotions and understand human beings and know that, okay, by my actions, I'm going to cause that person to have unrealistic expectations out of any situation in life when it comes to church. So when you come to a person with your insecurities, you need to be open about it. Yep. Like, the other person may not understand it, but at least you are being open with them. And then hopefully that opens up a discussion of dialogue, because I can say in previous situations dealing with church hurt, if the leadership actually had come to me and talked to me as a human being, and not as just a volunteer or a person that is serving in that church, if they'd actually come to me and just sat down and talked with me going, hey man, what's going on? Like, let's just talk. And I can open up unafraid of what might happen, and just know that they're going to understand my point of view and have empathy for my emotions and my feelings, that maybe we can come to a resolve that both parties are happy with, or at least content with, and understand that no one is going to leave this hurt or angry. Mm-hmm. That's how you resolve church hurt. Leadership needs to not put so much expectations on somebody and then get upset when those expectations are met in return. Like, the whole gist of this Humans are humans. Connect with these people. Try to build the relationships and not just create transactions with people. Like, oh, you do this here, this gets you this, and that makes me happy, or this fulfills that need that I needed to have done. Like, no. People are serving because they want to serve, because they want to believe in a bigger vision. Let them do it.
This has been another episode of Into the Fray. We want to thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast on your podcast feed. We will see you next week for another conversation.